thing you'll want to pay very close attention to, as Mr. Crabtree teaches you, is how Polk orchestrates this conflict in such a way that he can blame Mexico for the war. That seems to be one of Polk's aims. Thank you, everyone.
All right, like Mr. Fader said, the main takeaway that we're going to try to get out of today's lesson is just how much Polk was pushing for a war, but at the same time trying to do it in a diplomatic way. So he was trying to make it look as if Mexico was trying to start a war with us, to the American public. He needed the American public behind him. So it's all about how he orchestrated these different events and how it led ultimately to a war. So, question number one, although the United States blanked the Republic of Texas as an independent nation in 1837, Texas was not immediately blank. Who has that? Yes?
Recognize.
Recognize, yeah, and then the second one?
Annex.
Perfect, excellent. Yeah, we recognize them as a nation, but there was some hesitation to annex them, and we'll discuss that here in a couple questions. Why were the Americans worried about Texas's relationship with the British? Yes?
If Texas and the British teamed up, they could seize all the way to the Pacific, and they wanted, and America wanted California, so that wouldn't really work the best for them.
No, you're exactly right. Do you know, was Texas interested in being a part of this alliance? Did they have any intentions doing that? No, not really. It was more so just they were looking to become their own state, or rather their own nation, and they were more worried about border disputes with Mexico than they were being buddy-buddy with British. Like, yeah, they were willing to take their help, but at the end of the day, they were worried about, Texas, not any relationships outside of it. Number three, some Americans wanted Texas to become part of the United States. They believed in blank, or the idea that the United States should expand across North America. Who has that one? Yes, please.
Manifest destiny.
Excellent, perfect. Does anybody remember who coined the term manifest destiny? Okay.
Is it John O'Sullivan?
Excellent. Yep, perfect. All right, number four. Explain why most Southerners supported annexing Texas, while most Northern abolitionists did not. Okay.
Because Texas would have been a very large slave state.
All right, so that's why the Northerners, the Northern abolitionists did not. How about the Southerners? Yes, please.
The Southerners had good land for cotton, so they wanted more slaves.
Exactly. I mean, Texas, it's a big state, so there was plenty of land to grow cotton. It would be another slave state that would help them maintain the institution of slavery in the United States. It was a win-win scenario for the Southerners. Abolitionists. Who can define that for me? What does it mean to be an abolitionist? So an abolitionist is basically a person who believed that the institution of slavery was bad. It was their belief that it should be abolished. So they wanted it abolished, therefore they're called abolitionists. Number five. In December 1845, Texas became the 28th blank. However, some problems were still unresolved. The boundary between blank and blank remained undetermined. Yes, please.
In December 1825, Texas became the 28th state. However, some problems were still unresolved. The boundary between Texas and Mexico remained undetermined.
Perfect, thank you. Does anybody remember what was the boundary that the United States wanted? Yes?
Rio Grande.
Perfect. How about Mexico? What did they claim that the boundary was? Anybody remember the name of it? Jack?
Is it like the San Jacinto or something like that?
Not quite. It was the New Oases. Number 6. Blank was sent by President Polk to convince Mexico to accept the blank as the southern border of Texas. Slidell was also authorized to offer Mexico $25 million for blank and $5 million for blank. Yes, please.
In December
Nope, next one.
1845.
Oh, next one.
Oh, Jesus. John Slidell was sent by President Polk to convince Mexico to accept the Rio Grande as the southern border of Texas. Slidell was also authorized to offer Mexico $25 million for California and $5 million for New Mexico.
Perfect. All right, number 7. How did Mexican officials react to the United States' offer? Yes.
They're outraged.
Why?
Because they didn't wanna sell their land to the United States.
Was it just that, or
And
just?
Texas.
I put that they thought the US was kind of lowballing, and they didn't wanna sell it anyway.
Right on. Yes.
They took it as an insult, and then Mexicans shed blood on American soil.
That's fair. Anybody else? Any other reasons why Mexico might be upset about this? Alright. It doesn't explicitly mention it in your packets there. But they were expecting the United States to come down there and apologize. Like, they heard that Slidell was coming, and they're like, sweet, we're gonna get an apology. Not only that, but they're gonna pay us for the land that they annexed from us. Because remember, they still considered Texas like, they considered them a rebellious state. They considered them still part of Mexico. So for the United States to just say, no, that's ours now, like, and no trade of payment there, they were expecting an apology and payment. But obviously that wasn't the case. So next question, we're gonna be reading Slidell's response to President Polk. Do I have a volunteer to read that? No worries, I'll take care of it. I have endeavored to throw all responsibility of failure of negotiations on the Mexican government. This will place us upon the strongest possible grounds. If an appeal be made by you to the country, it will be met with a hearty and unanimous response. A war would probably be the best mode of settling our affairs with Mexico. So what does Slidell recommend there as the best way to resolve the conflict? And
A war.
war, all right? Who does Slidell blame for the failed negotiations? Yes.
Zachary Taylor? Was that?
I'm seeing, what?
No, it wasn't, cause he went across the river.
Yeah.
So no, it's not him.
In that excerpt there, Lynn,
The Mexican government.
absolutely. Now, what do you think his motive there, like, the next sentence, this will place us upon the strongest possible grounds. If an appeal be made by you to the country, it will be met with a hearty and unanimous response. What do you guys get out of that? What plea is he talking about, Jeff?
They're kind of just blaming it on Mexico, so like the public will be with them.
Exactly. They're trying to push all blame onto the Mexican government, so that way they can approach the public and be like, hey, we tried to resolve this dispute, but the Mexican government wasn't working with us. We did all that we could, so therefore we proposed this war, and Slidell's saying that that will be met with, a very positive response. All right, number 9. President Polk wanted to move against Mexico, but was unsure if Americans would back a blank. President Polk tried to press the issue by sending General Blank across the New Oases River to set up a post north of the Rio Grande. Mexico considered this their blank. Landon.
President Polk wanted to move against Mexico, but was unsure if Americans would back an expansion. President Polk tried to press the issue by sending General Zachary Taylor across the New Oases River to set a post north of the Rio Grande. Mexico considered this their territory.
Really good. expansion, I would probably switch that with war, because, yeah, he wanted expansion, and yeah, you know, tomato, tomato in this case, but war is definitely what we're looking for there. Now, if he's unsure that the public wants war, why do you think he told Zachary Taylor to go across the Nueces and set up that post? Jack?
So that they can say that Mexico made the first move.
Exactly. He's trying to poke the bear. That way, as soon as that bear snaps at him, he can be like, "Hey, I just got attacked by a bear. We need to do something about this bear." You know. So he's trying to poke them into retaliation, so that way the public will have his back in the war. All right. So number 10. What was Colonel Ethan Allen Hitchcock's opinion of the government's order to enter the disputed territory?
You might wanna read that quote.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
That would
good.
help. That's right. That's in this. Alright, so Hitchcock says, "We have not one particle of right to be here. It looks as if the government sent a small force on purpose to bring on a war, so as to have a pretext for taking California and as much of this country as it chooses." So what do you guys get out of that? Jack,
You thought that they shouldn't really be there,
why?
because it wasn't their land.
Totally, it's not our land, we have no pretenses to go there, they haven't done anything to us. Like, he's saying there, it's like, the reason why we sent those troops into that territory was to start a war. And he recognizes that for what it is. Alright. In April 1846, blank soldiers attacked the U.S. Cavalry Patrol. General Taylor notified President Polk, who then asked Congress to declare war. Yeah.
In April 1846, Mexican soldiers attacked a U.S. Cavalry Patrol. General Taylor notified President Polk, who then asked Congress to declare war.
Absolutely. And there's a really interesting story behind this, and that is Polk already had means, or rather an excuse ready to ask Congress for war. He was trying to poke them into like retaliating against them so that way he could declare war against them. It just wasn't working. So he had to come up with another reason. And that reason is Mexico owed the United States government $2 million, and they hadn't yet paid that debt. And so he was saying, or rather proposing to Congress, let's go to war with them so that way we can collect that debt. And as he's literally writing down this proposal, and the word comes in that this attack happened. And so, you know, that's the best case scenario for Polk. Like, he now has an excuse ready to just go to Congress. So then he writes in there, hey, this happened, we need immediate action, ask them to declare war, and it happens. All right. Number 12, we have an excerpt there. Does anybody want to read that? Aaron, can I have you read that?
Number 12?
Yeah, that quote right above number 12.
We have tried every effort at reconciliation. Mexico has shed American blood upon American soil. As war exists, notwithstanding all our efforts to avoid it, exists by the act of Mexico herself, invoke the prompt action of Congress, the place at the disposal of the executive, the means of prosecuting the war with vigor.
All right. Excellent, thank you. Number 12, does President give any proof of how the United States tried to resolve this situation? Yes?
No.
No. What does he do? Jack?
He says that they tried to stay out of it, which just isn't true.
Exactly. It's you know, the resolution to everything he's been setting up. And that is, we're the good guys, we promised, we did everything we could to, you know, avoid this conflict. All we wanted to do was annex this other country that didn't even belong to Mexico. And Mexico's throwing a fit about it. That's his claim. And given these actions, we can see now, like in hindsight, that that just isn't true. But Polk telling Congress, yeah, that's his claim. All right, number 13. Not all Americans were in favor of the war. Blank considered the war a Southern plot to add more blank states to the Union. Jack.
Not all Americans were in favor of the war. Abolitionists considered the war a Southern plot to add more slave states to the Union.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I mean, a couple weeks ago, we discussed how there was this process of every time there was a free state added or a slave state added, the opposite was also added. It just kept going in pairs. And like, I mean, that holds true even for this. I mean, Texas was the 28th state in the Union. Iowa became a free state, and that was our 29th. It just kept going back and forth. And what is that an example of? What is that starting to show as like a trend in the country? Like, are people resolving their differences, or they just keep moving them further apart? Jeff?
Sectionalism.
Yeah, exactly. That's an example of sectionalism. So next we're going to read a quote by Abraham Lincoln when he was a congressman. Do I have a volunteer to read that? Landon.
If the president can show that the soil was ours where the first blood of the war was shed, and I am with him for justification. If he cannot or will not do this, then I shall be fully convinced of what I more suspect already, that he is deeply what's that word?
Conscious.
Conscious of being in the wrong, that he feels the blood of this war is crying to heaven against him.
All right. Who does Lincoln believe is responsible for the war? Jack.
President Polk.
All right. What is Abraham Lincoln accusing President Polk of doing there?
Like setting up the war.
Yeah, exactly. And in that first sentence, he says, if the president can show that the soil was ours, where the first blood of the war was shed, then I am with him for his justification. What is he asking for?
Proof.
Exactly. He's asking for proof, pointing out what Jack said there, which was he didn't offer any proof. He's just saying, no, I told them, like, I was trying to be the nice guy, but they attacked us. Like, he's asking for proof because war isn't quite a small thing, you know? So that's why this war gets sometimes nicknamed Mr. Polk's War, because from the beginning to the start of the war, there is a clear trend that shows President Polk's actions leading farther and farther toward a war. And that's why that's why this war was so divisive, is because is that much disputed territory worth, a $10 million war? A lot of people said no. But that series of nationalistic ideology kept pushing because we believe that, it's our God-given right to take this land. So that can understandably create a bit of a divide in a country. Mr. Frady, got anything else to add?
No, that was good.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree. All right, thank you, everyone. I would keep this because it's